Today I want to go over chapter 4, labs. Lab 4.14 says convert to reverse binary. In this lab, it says write a program that takes a positive integer as input and outputs a string of ones and zeros representing the integer in reverse binary. So as long as the x is greater than 0, output x modulus 2. Remainder is either 0 or 1. X, we divided by 2. There's a note here. In this lab, we define an integer variable, user num. We say cout double right arrow user num. We get the user num. While user num is greater than 0, we cout user num modulus 2. And then we say user num equal to user num divided by 2. It means we get the user num as long as it's positive. We find the remainder of dividing user num by 2. And then we divide the user num by 2 again. And then we keep doing that. And then we display it. Lab 4.15 is varied amount of input data. It says that statistics are often calculated with varying amounts of input data. Write a program that takes any number of non-negative integers as input and outputs the max and average. A negative integer ends with input and is not included in the statistics. Assume the input contains at least one non-negative integer. Output each floating point value with 2 digits after the decimal point, which can be achieved by executing cout's fixed precision 2. Once before all other the cout statements. For example, when the input is at 152003-1, the output is 29.50. In this lab, we define some integer variables. User int, sum ints, num ints, max int. We define a double average. We say sum ints equal to 0. Num ints equal to 0. Max int equal to -1. We get the user integer. We say while the user integer is greater equal to 0, we add sum ints and user int, we put it in sum ints. We can add 1 to num integers and put it in num integers. If user int is greater than max int becomes user int. In this while loop, we keep calculating the sum of integers. And then we add 1 to the number of integers. We compare the user integer and max integer. If the user integer is greater than max integer, we put the user integer in the max integer. We get the next user integer, we find the average. For the average, we can cast num ints to double. Then we divide it by num ints. We put that in average. We display the max int using fixed and set precision 2, and we display the average. Lab 4.16 says count characters. Write a program whose input is a character and a string, and whose output indicates the number of times the character appears in the string. The output should include the input character and use the plural form in comma s. If the number of times the character appears is not exactly 1. For example, if the input is in Monday, the output is 1n. If the input is z today is Monday, the output is 0 z's. So in this example, we create a variable character, not input character, which is the character. We create a string named input string, which is a string. We have an integer num characters. We have unsigned int I. And we put 0 in the num characters. We put 0 in the I. We get the input character. We have a get line here. We get, what do you say get line, see an input string. We're getting a string and we put it in input string. We say while I is less than input string dot length, if input string dot add I equal to input character, num character is plus I. In this example, we're getting a string using getLine. We say while this I, which starts from 0, is less than the number of the characters you have in the string. If input character is that specific character in the string, you add 1 to the number of characters. We add 1 to the I. We display the number of characters as an input character. We say if non-characters is not equal to 1, Cout colon S, Cout and L. So we have a while loop that we process the string. We compare each character in the string with the input character. If any of those characters is equal to input character, we add 1 to the number of characters and we add 1 to the I. Lab 4.17 is remove all non-alphabetic characters. Write a program that removes all non-alpha characters from given input. If the input is hello one word and then dollar exclamation mark, the output is hello world. In this example, we define a unsigned int I. We define a string user input. We define a string user input, no spaces. We use the get line to get a line from the user. We put it in the user input. We say for I equal to 0, I less than user input length plus I. If is alpha user input at I, this means I go to each character in the string. If it's an alpha, then I add the user input no spaces and I add this user input add I to the no spaces. If you look at this user input no spaces, it's a string. It means I go to the string one by one. Whenever I get a character that matches this situation, it means it's alpha. Then I will add it to my user input no space. I display the user input no space, and then I can get the output. So this is how we can do it. We can remove all non-alphabetic characters. If you look at the lab 4.18, it says output range with increment of 5. Write a program whose input is 2 integers and whose output is the first integer and subsequent increments of 5 as long as the value is less than or equal to the second integer. If the input is minus 15, 10, the output is minus 15, minus 10, minus 5, 0, 5, and 10. So if the second integer is less than first integer, we get 20 and 5. The output is second integer can't be less than the first. In this example, we create num1 and num2 and I, which are integers. We get num1 and num2. We say if num2 is less than num1, we see out second integer can't be less than first. Else, we go from num1 to num2. We add 5 by 5 to the I. We display the I. So we have two different numbers. While the second one is less than the first one, if the second one is less than the first one, we say the second can't be less than the first. If this condition doesn't match, we go from num1 to num2 5 by 5 and display I. Lab 4.19 says print string in reverse order. Write a program that takes in a line of text as input and outputs that line of text in reverse. The program repeats ending when the user enters done, done, or D for the line of text. If the input is hello there, hey, done, then the output is so. In this example, we want to get a string. We define an integer I. We define a string user input. We say get line cin comma user input. This while loop means as long as the user input is not done, and the user input is not done with the small d, and the user input is not d, then we go from I equal to length minus 1, I greater equal to 0, minus I. We see out every character in the string. It means we go from the last one to the first one and we display them. Then we display the int L and we get line again. This means every line that you read, you reverse it. So I want you guys to finish labs for chapter 4. If you have any questions, let me know.